And we're back. Welcome to episode 4 of the Wazari Ippon podcast. I'm Path, joined as always by Ichigeki X Chris.
What's going on, man? How are you?
Man, it has been an absolutely insane couple months. I'm still on the road. Um, I wanted to say a shout out again to Aaron and Mike from Karate Nation who've taken over the Twitter for me. While I've been gone, I've sort of rigged up a sort of bullshit command mic. I don't have my snowball that I normally do, so if audio quality is a little weird this time, I apologize. It's the best I can do on the road. So there's a lot to talk about. We've missed a lot, so we're just going to jump right in to the IKO Kyokushin Kaikan All Japan Weight Tournament, which happened might have been a couple months ago now, even. Um,
Yeah,
so
I don't.
yeah, we're all a little bit out of the loop on that. So I did get to watch it. I did get a replay. No surprises at super heavyweight. Konstantin Kovalenko won very easily. He sort of just showed up on day 2 and slapped the shit out of them. He had a bye from day 1. Interestingly, something to note about this tournament is that for the first time, I think ever, unless Chris can correct me on this, I think for the first time ever, they've split the weight categories into 5 instead of 4, which is something that Shin Kyokushin does for the JFKO. So there's now super lightweight. So before it was 70 kg and under for lightweight, and that's the way it's always been. But they've just recently added a 60 for super lightweight, which is brand new for this tournament.
So that might be something that Shinseikai did or has been doing because they run their own tournaments, and that might be something carried over from Dado Kaikon or something that they
Mm.
have like very super lightweight or whatever. Um, so again, this was a collaboration between Kaikon and Shinseikai. So they're they're using Kyokushin rules, but could have been something that was carried over.
Yeah, that might have come. I think last time we talked about the sort of joint meeting between the officials.
Hmm.
This might have been something that came out of that, where they said we really feel strongly that there needs to be a lighter weight. Interestingly enough,
Yeah.
this might be a good idea going forward because something the Kyokushin Kaikan specifically has struggled with is their really lightweight guys will not even enter the adult tournaments. Like you look at Tenshin Nasukawa, or
Hmm.
guys that are just really, really like 120 pounds soaking wet kind of thing. Once they sort of graduate out of the minors, then they look at the All Japan weights and they go, I have to fight 70 kg. They bounce. They go, all right, I'm going to kickboxing where I can fight, tiny toy men for money.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if this is another move to sort of keep them. And why I think that is a fighter that I was really high on, Naofumi Yamashina, who was an IKO Youth Cup draftee who went through that program, like Tenshin, was really good. When he sort of came of age, he went to Rise, and he's 4-0 in kickboxing, and he's looking really good in that. And I thought, damn, there's another one we lost. But he actually competed. He competed at super lightweight, so he came back for this. And I guess, like Bay Noah, he's going to do both. So I think that's really good to sort of retain some of the talent. Um,
Do you
interesting.
know that he was still doing karate, or did he just come out of nowhere?
Um, I know he's at, is it Narimasa Dojo? He's at the same
Yeah.
place that Bay Noah is. So I think
Narimasu. Yeah.
Narimasu, yeah, that's the one. So I know, I think Kenta, him, and Bay Noah are all at the same karate school still.
Hmm.
So I knew he must still be practicing or at least teaching.
Hmm.
Interestingly enough, he's looked pretty unstoppable in Rise lately. He's 4-0, but he actually got finished really badly in this tournament. I've talked in the past on other shows about how Kyokushin requires a literal inhuman level of body conditioning because you have to fight so many times in one day. I'm wondering if because he's been so focused on kickboxing and working on boxing stuff, that just sort of let his conditioning slip because he got finished really badly with leg kicks,
Mm.
which was kind of surprising to me.
Yeah, I mean that's what. So we're gonna talk about it in a little while, but Nick Pettis says that like Chokshin is like fighting in a phone booth. So you really have to be close to the other person, and you have to condition your stomach. You have to condition your legs to take damage because the guy isn't going anywhere. He's not taking a step back. So it's constantly, you're almost blocking at the same time you are striking. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Not only that, you have to fight like 6 times in one day, right? So
yeah.
it's different than having just one fight, or you don't. You can think, oh well, I can condition leg kicks a little bit, but I can just grunt it out to the end. Well, when you have to do that and then sit and let it swell up and then
Mm.
go to the next one and the next one, right? So yeah,
Even
he
think, yeah, like think how you feel after a regular, Tuesday night class. Your legs are a mess,
destroyed.
but
Yeah,
having to do that for 2 days straight must be agonizing.
yeah. So and I think he had a Rise fight like not too long before this tournament, so I'm not even sure it was a good idea he was here. But anyway, he lost to leg kicks and placed third for the super lightweight. Um, Udai Kaneko won top place. I don't know if he's a newcomer, but he's not someone who is on my radar. I didn't know who he was, but he looked good. He looked fast. He a lot of lateral movement. Um, Another standout would be that Kenta Nanbara, who I've talked about on the show a couple times, recently got absolutely demolished in Rise. Guy just walked up
Really?
to him, just threw a big like the guy was on a amount of steroids that probably could have killed a giraffe. Like the guy just looked like a freak. He had muscles on muscles, clearly all natural. Looked about 50 pounds heavier than Kenta. Walked up and just blasted him in the face with steroid power and knocked him out in like the first couple seconds. And I thought, yeah,
Wow.
that's why I've been warning people that we talked before about how Kenta he came up with tension. He was going to be the next big thing, the face of IKO. They put him on all the magazines. And then he entered the world tournament and got bounced in like the first or second round. We never heard from him again. So he's recently come back and, he's had an okay stint in Rise. He just had a loss in Rise, but he's bounced back big because he won heavyweight for the All Japan weight,
Mhm.
which really surprised me. I didn't think he could. There was some really good fighters in this one, like Shin Takagi, who I've been really high on, sort of short,
Those
stocky dude. Yeah.
those calf kicks, and he throws the Valeri kick, like the inside heel kick.
Yeah.
The, oh man, I love that. I love all
Yeah.
like I love that stuff.
Yeah. He's been killing people with like spinning heel kicks from hell. And nobody expects them because he's so short and sort of stocky. But he can get his leg out there, man.
Yeah.
So Shin Takagi placed fourth. Kenta Nambara was able to beat him.
So do you want to talk about how boring that fight between Nambar and Nishimura was? It was. Do you remember? It was like just
oh,
they both of them played it so safe, and
yeah, yeah. Go
we
ahead. Go ahead.
we were texting back and forth though that night, and just it was no one, neither side wanted to take a risk in that fight, which was understandable, but it was unbelievably boring between like guys that should be banging it out, at a national level.
Yeah. Taiga Nishimura. Man, he had such a good run leading up to that. I had never seen him. This was my first time like being introduced to him. I hadn't seen him before, and he did really, really well up until he got Kenta Nanbara. I think it was so close to the finals, and both guys. Nishimura wants his first win. Kenta Nanbara coming off a really embarrassing loss. Didn't want to take any risks at all. I think how many extensions did it? I feel like it went a couple extensions, didn't it?
Probably did. I don't remember.
Yeah.
So guys, sorry, neither of us had time to rewatch the whole tournament. So we're kind of just playing off of memory here,
Yeah,
but yeah, it was at least one extension, maybe two.
yeah, but it was not watchable TV.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Kenta Nanbara ended up winning at heavyweight. Usually, especially in Japan, you get this weird you get this weird effect, right? So the last, I want to say, 6 or 7 years, you had the four aces of the All Japan. You had Yuta Takahashi, you had Shohei Kamada, you had Mikio Ueda, and you had Shoki Arata. And these guys were all like generational defining fighters with amazing attributes. They could fight anyone in the world and have a chance to beat them, not just in Japan, but globally. Shohei Kamada beat Eremenko twice. Yuta Takahashi beat Alejandro Navarro twice. Like they all could bring it for Japan. The interesting thing was they were so focused on the All Japan weight, or sorry, the All Japan Open and the World tournaments and stuff. Half the time they wouldn't even bother competing in the All Japan weight.
Yeah, that's true.
Like
The
from
only
two,
one that really did it consistently was Rata.
yes, yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. Arato's the only one who did it consistently. The other three typically weren't there, especially after they sort of graduated.
Hmm.
So it's this weird thing where Japanese heavyweight was really, really good, but none of them would fight in the weight tournament, so it was still shit. So, and then you'd have Russians winning them half the time. Like I'm looking at it right now. 2017, Kapanze won. 2018, Anton Gulaev won, and then 2019, Kapadze again. Like, and then Kovalenko this year. Like, they actually had really good heavyweights, but they just
I wonder if
too
Capanazza
busy.
is retired. He's he would be relatively good age now. He's probably like 35.
This would
But
have to be his last run for the world tournament, I think.
yeah,
Yeah, he's got one more in him. No,
it,
I wonder that too,
that guy's a
because
psychopath.
that guy is
he,
a scary
he,
motherfucker.
so if you're not familiar with Capanazza, he usually grows his hair and beard out, before a tournament to like almost caveman style for the first and second days of the tournament. So usually Friday and Saturday. And then if he makes it to the third day, he shaves his head and his beard and just shows up and just like wrecks people. He gets usually to the top eight at least in the world tournament, like in the open weight tournament. On like you said, he won a couple years ago. So
Oh yeah,
in the weight category.
yeah, and he has probably like the most vicious middle kick I think I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Just cuts people in half with it.
Almost
But
has like
yeah,
he almost has like no conscience. Like he just like when he enters the mat, it's like he's not human. He's like a killing machine. I love it.
yeah, there's a couple where I've seen of him in Russia, or it's just like some green belt who clearly did too well in preliminaries and got somewhere he didn't belong. And I'm like, okay, let's see what happens. And he just like splits him in half with one middle kick. I'm like, you could have just tripped him. Like, you didn't have to do that. But he's like,
I
nah.
I almost fought him. So the time I entered the tournament, the U.S. weight category tournament in L.A. in like 2018, it must be. Uh, I fought super heavyweight, and that, of course, who decides to come to LA that year? Apanadze. So I was freaking out the whole time. I was like, do I have to fight him? Like I'm gonna die. But luckily, they made the draw where I fought one of the black belts from my dojo in the first round, and then I uh, fought a black belt from LA, and I ended up losing. So I got knocked out of the tournament before before Capenaze showed up. But my dojo mate had to fight him, and he gave him a good run for his money. But that guy's on a different level.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you didn't fight him because then I'd have to find a new co-host, and that would be really annoying. So I'm
Oh,
glad
dude,
you're still here.
I was like almost in tears when I saw his name. Like was my first time fighting, like full contact anyway, and then to have it to go against Capenaze, like my first tournament would have been.
I would say picking the All-American weight as your first full contact tournament,
Well, we
maybe not
don't.
the best idea.
Well, we don't have like sort of farm leagues here. We only have two tournaments in America. So there's the weight category where you sort of can figure out who you're going to fight based on your weight. And then we have the All American Open, which my dojo organizes in New York. But again, that's open weight, and that's more an international tournament than it is a national tournament. So you get guys like Caponazzi, you get Tussaud, you get all these like legit elite fighters in
Right.
that in the New York tournament. So I took a chance and did it in LA. But yeah.
Interesting. So they don't have like just local dojo organized tournaments and stuff on the low level because we have that all over.
Well, yeah, no, because there's really in America for the IKO is there's New York and then there's LA. And LA has like two or three branch chiefs, but New York there's only one branch chief, which is my Shihan Garai. So there's really no sort of intro tournaments or regional tournaments other than sort of in-house like parity tournaments that we host. But again, that's like fighting guys you fight every week, so it's like it's not even real competition, sort of.
Interesting. So I mean that's got to be a big factor on why like IKO produces no offense like no American talent whatsoever on the international level. It's just too
Yeah, and
tiny.
and the guys we have fight for America. I mean, it's great that you know uh, we can say that we have them, but they weren't born here. They're either Japanese or they're usually, at least from LA dojo, they're usually Japanese born, um, like Taiga Yanesegawa, or I'm blanking on his name now, but there's the other guy from LA dojo who's Japanese but fights for America, and then for from the New York dojo, they're usually like the Polish guys that we have in our dojo or did have in our dojo. So there's no real American. Not that it makes a difference, but there's real no homegrown talent on an international level.
Gotcha. Makes sense. So that was a tangent. I love it,
Yeah,
but
sorry
we
about
got away from
that.
the weight tournament. No, it was great stuff. So this show's about two dumbasses talking about karate. Okay. So I think that's the main takeaways from the All Japan weight. The one last thing I wanted to add is so Kovalenko won. There was only a top three. So when I'm looking at the listings, they didn't even bother having like a fourth place fight off. They just like gave Dai Iwata third place. It doesn't seem to be anybody listed as fourth place. It seems like super heavyweight is in real bad shape. So I don't think Kaito Nishimura fought. I didn't
No,
see
he
him.
didn't. No.
Yeah, so it was just Kovalenko basically cruising to a win. I really want to highlight something about this. Sorry, just one sec. Like it's so we've talked before about Ryonosuke Hoshi, who was like on the cover of magazines, and they were sort of grooming him to be the next IKO super heavyweight champ. Then he
Mhm.
got beat by a lightweight and fucked off to K1. Um, we're entering a real bad era, I think, for IKO Japanese heavyweights, and I'm sad about that because like we just left, in my opinion, one of the best. Like again, Yuta Takahashi, Sohei Kamada, Shoki Arata, Mikio Ueda, they're all gone or retired. And you know who plays second for super heavyweight? Yamato Nagasawa. Um,
Yeah, that that dude gets knocked out every tournament. He just goes to sleep. It's like
yeah,
you can give him the first two rounds like of the tournament, and then night for Yamada. It's crazy.
Someone's hurting him. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's what I'm saying. This guy plays second. And I have nothing against him. He's a decent fighter. He's a regional level fighter. But like,
Yeah.
if this is the best Japan can put up for super heavyweight, like they're going to get murdered the next world weight. There's going to be no Japanese in the top 8. It's just sad that
Yeah.
I don't know what they can do, but they got to figure something out because this is I think even Yuzo Suzuki, who was a crush fighter and a world weight champion for lightweight, he's one of the national team coaches. I remember after Kovalenko swept the shit out of them in 2019, he said, like, we got to figure something out. Like, we're all lightweight. He even said it on Twitter. He's like, we got to figure something out. We're all lightweights, and like, it's just not working. Like, if we want to beat, international talent, we got to do something. So, it doesn't seem like in the 2 years that was
Yeah. No.
discussed, anything's changed.
Also, COVID, like
Right.
Japan is just doing their own thing with COVID stuff. So they don't seem to be fostering new ideas in anything sort of. But yeah,
Yeah.
like for so let's talk about Kovalenko. So
Hmm.
like you said, he kind of walked in and won that tournament. Um, but you pointed out during our chat that night was he didn't throw a single sweep.
Hmm.
Um, that the sweeps seemed to be his thing when he got to Japan, and prior to that, that was sort of his go-to move, and that's how he won last All Japan. Oh, the first All Japan that he won was like 2020, right? So that's how he won that tournament. He didn't throw a single sweep. He also like was very stiff from the waist up. I wonder if he was sort of nursing a back injury or just like very odd looking when he fought. So, which is completely different compared to his old style. So, um, like we have hinted at and mentioned in other um, in previous podcasts, like I don't know if Japan has been the best thing for him in terms of becoming a world class fighter.
I mean, it's hard to disagree with that when the top opposition they can give him is Yamato Nagasawa.
Yeah,
Like,
is what
he'd be fighting
happens.
Eremenko if
Yeah,
he was still in Russia. Like,
yeah. Is what happens next. Like next year is the world tournament. He's still going to be, relatively stuck in Japan, and who's going to come up fight him? Zagainov, Andre
losing, yeah.
Luzin, and then all those other guys that we talked about in the last podcast, all like those fresh crop of Russian guys, they're gonna come and they're gonna like
Ekimov, yeah.
beat them to a pulp, beat them to a pulp.
Yeah, I mean, I hope not because I like Kovalenko a lot, but it's not.
Yeah.
But
And
the main thing is, like, for Japan too, like, even their best guy, right, who didn't fight, Kaito Nishimura. I know you're a little bit higher on him than I am, and it's not that I don't like him. He's from Yuta Takahashi's dojo. He seems like a really nice guy. But when I watch him fight, I sort of when I'm watching knockdown fighters, everybody can sort of go forearm to forearm and blast punches and low kicks, right? Like that's a given. Everyone
Mhm.
can do that. I always look for the it factor. So the it factor for Mikio Ueda was being really tall and having incredibly flexible hips to knee people in the face from really weird angles. Yuta Takahashi, it was his insane movement and ability to get around you and throw like sickle kicks and weird things and knock people out. He had tons of knockouts. He called him Ichigeki Nobleman for a reason. Like he was dropping everybody. Um, when I look at Nishimura, I don't see anything other than he goes forearm to forearm and he throws punches and low kicks. And I think I've watched about 25, 30 fights of his.
Mhm.
Even when he's in an open tournament and he's fighting someone much smaller than him, I've never seen him drop anybody. He can't even put anybody down. Like he doesn't seem to have any power at all. Um,
Yeah.
that's not going to fly against the Russians, man. If you can't
Uh,
drop Japanese lightweights with your power, you are not going to be able to keep them off of you.
well, it's also his game, right? So like you said, he goes forearm to forearm and then throws leg kicks and sort of uppercuts. But he also goes for trips a lot, like that front foot trip, or he goes for like ogai, which is like the push out thing. So he goes for a lot of like non knockout moves, uh, and that's a large part of his game. So he's gotta he's got to change up his strategy for the world tournament, or else, like you said, those Russians are coming for him.
Yeah, that shit is not gonna like. I know that you're right. That's a good thing to point out. And I miss the trip things. I have to go back and watch. I'm not great at noticing the subtlety of trips because it's new and it's not something I'm very good at. But I'm glad you brought that up. I'll double back and check that. But when I'm
I don't
watching
know if
him
he's
fight,
been doing yeah. I don't know if he's been doing it recently.
mm,
When he fought in New York in 2018 or 19,
mm,
and like Nishimura and also um, his dojo mate came over, and Yamato came over too. No, not Yamato. The other tall guy that Nishimura usually fights with. Um, uh,
Yamakawa.
Yamagawa, yeah, Yamakawa.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
Uh, they both came over for the All American Open 2019, and uh, that was Nishimura's plan, was like trips and push outs. So I don't know. I haven't really noticed it recently, but I know that is it in his sort of repertoire.
Gotcha. Yeah, it seems I've noticed over the last like 5 years or so, a lot of the guys that just fight in Japan, that just do the weight tournaments and stuff. Nishimura being one of them. Um, no, yeah, no, you're right. He has traveled to New York quite a few times for their tournaments, but I noticed they will do something like if they start landing some good punches and get their opponent moving backwards or have clearly hurt them, they won't step on the gas and try to finish them. I think it's that whole like I'm already ahead on the scorecard, so to speak. I just need a decision win to get to the next round. But it
Mm.
seems to have like ingrained for him. Like I can't stress enough how strange, at least for me, it is to see a true super heavyweight. Like he's huge, and when he's in these open tournaments, he can't even drop lightweights. Like he's like 100 plus, maybe even 120 kg, and he's fighting 70 kgers, and he can't drop them. And I think it's
I don't
probably
know.
because he's holding back a little bit. But I'm like, that's a bad habit, man. Because like when you start fighting super heavyweight Russians who are like when you watch them in their open tournaments, if Igor Zagainov gets a 70 kg guy, that guy is out of there in 10 seconds on a stretcher.
Yeah,
Um, and it's just a weird, like, I understand the Japanese mentality on that. Of like, it's a tournament, it's not a fight. The point is to
yeah.
get to the next one with as little damage as possible. I think that can be smart, but I think for him specifically, he takes that a little too to heart.
There's
And
no big guy, like you said. There's no big guys anymore, so he doesn't have sort of like a mentor
yeah,
guy. So all those little guys. I mean, he's on the top. He's on the team with all little guys. So all the little guys are trying to use their speed and use their skills to not get hit. Or Nishimura, aside from Yamakawa, like he doesn't really have to worry about getting hit. So, but there's not that motivation to sort of use that to his advantage. So I think that that's also a factor of trains with all little guys. So there's no there's no one that he can look up to or look to it for advice in sort of his immediate circle
mm,
can that ball rolling in terms of picking up the pace.
no, I think you're right. That's a good point. So moving off of the All Japan weight, I think that's about the biggest takeaways from it. Relatively good tournament. I would say that between the JFKO that we covered last time that already happened and this one, something interesting to note is there was 7 kickboxers that fought in these tournaments. It seems to be happening more often now. Quite a few of them were um, guys who'd left the fold to go to kickboxing coming back, but some of them were like Rasta, who's a Rise kickboxer. As far as I'm aware, was not a member of one of these organizations. Entered. Kenta Nanbara is the only one who did well and won. The other 6 got like brutally knocked out, all of them. And
Asta entered the
he
IKO
entered.
one.
No, he entered. God, it was one I don't even. Let me try to find the. Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. It's like I think it's like an offshoot of Kyokushin Kan. He entered a weird one I'd never seen before.
And
I
Bukai or something.
yeah, and
Yeah,
they fought with gloves too. Like it wasn't fully bare knuckle. They had gloves. Oh,
so Kyokushin Khan and their offshoot now Kenbukai, they do like Shinken Shobu, which is their
yes,
sort of version of kickboxing.
yeah, it's like their Shin Karate variant. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he entered that and got beat by some random black belt, which is a very bad look for a professional kickboxer. But um, they all 6 of them got massacred. And I could just be an asshole because people are always assholes to us, and we're better or some shit. That's not actually what I think. I'm tempted to troll, but I think again the takeaway from this is what I've said before. Karate looks small because it's so fractured to a comical clown car level. But when you take the amount of like Kyokushin World Union the other day put out that they estimate they have about 1 million members worldwide. So they're like the 7th
Wow.
org to claim they have 1 million. Who knows if that's true, right? We can't check any of this
Yeah, yeah.
stuff. I tend to believe it though because karate schools are everywhere globally.
I would
Karate's
say that
fucking huge.
the majority of those would be sort of the eastern half of the world.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Eastern Europe. Um, but karate's fucking massive, and kickboxing doesn't have much money in it and really isn't that big. I think there's a lot of schools that practice it for other things. But when you take like the competitive level, I think knockdown karate is just way bigger. So the talent pool you're drawing from is just massive compared to kickboxing, especially in Japan. There's probably like 6 knockdown schools for every kickboxing school. So I think that's just something
And
to
then
put in
and then
perspective.
the more often the kickboxing schools, kickboxing is for adults, and like they have like kids karate or like shin
Right.
karate in those dojos. So like it's sort of a mix of of disciplines in Japan, at least.
Yeah, so like if people when people see these style versus style things happen or people from other orgs coming in, they're just wondering how to parse the knowledge. Like this is honestly what I think. I think there's 4 striking arts that are like equally good and can stand on their own, and that's Sanda, Muay Thai, kickboxing, and knockdown karate. Like different, take your flavor of knockdown karate. I think Taekwondo and boxing are both super good, but they need something else to be added, right? Like you need to learn low kicks or something for boxing, but they can make the other 4 a million times better when you add elements from it. So I don't think like knockdown karate is like the best, but when you get these people who, come in and say like, "Oh, karate sucks, can't compete with kickboxing or Muay Thai," it's laughable because this happens again and again. And I think it's just like why the United States does so well in the Olympics. They have a really good amateur program and they have a massive population to draw talent from. And that's all it is. Karate's just like twice as big as kickboxing. That's why stuff like this keeps happening, or why C-level karate champs can leave, go to kickboxing, and they're a rise champion in a year.
Yeah.
It's not because I think karate is better. So for people trying to figure out why this happens, I think it's just the population pool.
So I'll be the cocky American here and say karate's the best. So thank you very much for saying good things about the U.S. and good things about karate. But
We
just
just keep
joking.
winning, can't hold all
But
these W's.
what are you gonna do? It is what it is. But
And if you talk shit to us again, we might send our F-ranked champion to become your fucking pound for pound #1. Get out of here.
what are you gonna do? Um, but also like Sanda and Muay Thai and stuff like they're good. I mean, obviously they are meant, at least Muay Thai is like world popular worldwide, and
Right.
um, they train insanely. And but you know, people forget how hard Kyokushin training is and can be, not only in terms of like physical conditioning, like push-ups and just overall sort of aerobic conditioning, but like also body conditioning, like getting hit, in the stomach 100 times by a 6'5", 250-pound guy, week upon week upon week upon week, and getting low kicks and becoming used to that pain is not something people are used to, even in other combat sports. I think I would argue, right? So when guy
Yeah.
like you said that like a low level regional Kyokushin champion can go into Rise or K1 and become a champion in a year is because you've been kicked harder your whole life compared to some of these guys, right? So it, although it is challenging, they get punched in the face. It's a different rule set, but
Hmm.
for a lot of these guys, like it's there's no change, at least pain tolerance.
Yeah, and I mean, you sort of see the reverse. Like you see Yamashina, who grew up in that life, sort of let it slip, working on his boxing, working on fighting with gloves, which I think is the biggest obstacle. I did that change. I went from knockdown to Daido Juku, and training with gloves felt like tumors on my fists. It was the most uncomfortable. I still can't stand gloves. It changes the way you block when you can't sort of get your fingers around it. I hate it. Um, and he went and did that. And when he came back, his conditioning has sort of slipped and he got finished with low kicks, which is unheard of for a guy of his caliber. Um, and I'm not
I
knocking him at
mean,
all. I think trying to jump back and forth is extremely difficult, but it just shows you that even guys who've done it their whole life, if you let it slip, you'll lose it.
right? And so let's wrap up on the All Japan weight category. The last thing we'll mention about it is that sort of welcoming, because it is a collaboration between Kyokushin Kaikon and Shinseikai, sort of welcoming back, you know, or friendly organizations like back into the fold that don't claim to be Kyokushin or don't use the name Kyokushin in their name anymore. So one of the big things was that Kazumi Hajime was at the All Japan weight category tournament, and Tamura Shihan was taking photos with him, and everyone was taking photos with him. So it seems like you know Matsui Kancho is sort of lightening up in his middle age or his old age, in terms of guys who have left the organization and have started their own thing. As long as they don't use the name Kyokushin in their name, they seem to be you know more welcome to attempt to sort of join these tournaments now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm tempted to just go off here, but I'm gonna try to temper my for the long so Chris, like for just transparency, Chris is in IKO. I'm in nothing now. All the dojos sort of washed out from COVID. Um, not that I've even been home in the last year, but just in theory. So I'm affiliated with nobody now, so I can really say whatever the fuck I want.
I
For
still
the
gotta watch myself a little
yes,
bit.
which is why I'm not going to go nuclear with you here. But I think IKO has actually gotten an incredibly bullshit reputation from people. Like I've seen it for the last 10 years. Everyone's always bashing IKO, saying they won't work with anybody. They're the most restrictive. Um, but for people on the outside, that may seem true, but that's just absolute nonsense. Shin Kyokushin is way worse about this stuff, just not outwardly. So I'm trying to think of what angle of this I want to tackle first. First of all, IKO did very much like keep to itself. That's true. And I'm very happy to see Matsui opening up as he gets older. There's actually on Kyokushin Online, I think it was right before Mikio Ueda did his 100 man
Hmm?
Kumite, he sat down with Akira Masuda and sort of
Yes.
hashed things out. It was actually a beautiful conversation where he admits to all his faults. Matsui was super vulnerable in that interview. Like,
Hmm?
it's actually really strange to see that, but I thought it was awesome. I think seeing, Hajime Kazumi, who was persona non grata for a long time, who arguably is the greatest knockdown fighter of all time, which makes it even more ridiculous that he wasn't welcome.
Yeah.
Hopefully, him being ringside and stuff is a window to get his students in to the IKO tournaments, just like Shinsei Kai. I would love that. But like, there's other elements to this whole clothes thing that people miss when they say shit like that. So yeah, sure, Shin Kyokushin has JFKO and lets other styles come in, but it has to be under their umbrella. Has to be in JFKO. You have to say and do exactly what they want. And then when your student gets to the final against theirs, they'll lose by default. It's like, okay, you can say that's open, but it's bullshit. I'm really mad at Shin Kyokushin lately. I think they've really been bad um, with that, with their tournaments. I think it's pretty sad that everyone saw Yuta Goto beat the living shit out of their top guy and still lose in the final. And they are absolutely ridiculous with their copyright. Like, people ask me all the time, why on our channel, why don't we make highlights of Shin Kyokushin guys? Why don't we make highlights of JFKO? Why don't we talk about them more? Because if you even use 1 millisecond of footage, they will DMCA you and like try to sue you. Like, they are psycho with their media stuff. They have, I know this because he said it publicly, so I'm not breaking anybody's confidence. Keisuke Monguchi, who's a really good Rise kickboxer who I like a lot and consider a friend, he fought in JFKO for Shin Kyokushin and he was expelled from the organization. Why? Because he made a highlight of his own fights and put it on his own personal YouTube channel without writing a fucking written letter begging Midori to do so. They kicked him out for that. He's not allowed to wear his gi in the ring walks because of it. You want to talk about open? IKO lets their own fighters put up highlights. Antonio Tesao has videos all over his YouTube. They don't fucking go after him. They've been really lax with copyright over the last 20 years, with suing
Unless it's a
people.
Media 8 thing. But
Right. But they allow their fighters to post their own stuff.
mm,
They're not kicking people out of organizations for uploading a 10-second clip of their own fight. You're going to argue in court you don't own your own fight? Sorry, I mean, I don't want to go too crazy on this, but it's just insane that Shin Kyokushin's been getting patted on the back for the last 10 years for being the most open, welcoming. They're kicking their own guys out for filming their own fight for 10 seconds. Like, like IKO gets way too hard a rap for that, and I'm glad to see that they are changing, and hopefully that will shift perspectives a bit. And I want to say again, I'm not tied to any of these orgs. I've been in both, right? I've been in
mm,
both these orgs. I originally come from Kyokushin Kan, but I've been in both IKO and Shin Kyokushin. Both fucked me around. Both made me restart at white belt. Uh,
as
I
you
have reason
should. No, I'm
as
kidding.
a as I have bad things to say about both, but like it's just not fair the way IKO gets trashed by people in forums and stuff. It's just, of course, they've done a lot of like restrictive things too, but like I don't even think they're even close to the worst one on that stuff. And I'm glad to see they're changing. I want to see Masuda, uh, Kazumi, and Shinsekai students all enter, and we got to stop this clown car breakdown of 10 million orgs and 57 champions, and none of them ever fight. So this is a good, you know, bridge point for that. And you said,
Speaking of
yeah,
offshoots of,
yeah, that's a good
this is a
segue to this
good,
British
good
bullshit.
segue to. Um, Speaking of breakaway organizations, so since the last time we recorded, or maybe a little before that, there is a new karate organization in England. It's the British Karate Guild. So they broke away from the BKK, or the British Karate Kyokushin Karate Organization, slash the IFK, the International Federation of Karate, that was started by Steve Arneal in the early '90s after he left.
Not to be
He,
confused with the ABC of the LBQ of the QTE of the Sesame Street, right? Yeah, go ahead.
yes, yes, it's a bunch of letters, but IFK is the broader worldwide organization. So let's just call it that. Um, but, uh, anyway, so the British Karate Guild was formed by Nick DaCosta and a couple other, top-ranking Shihan uh, from the IFK. DaCosta fought in the third and fourth world tournaments. So 1984 and 1987, three-time British champion and also a two-time European champion. Um, but anyway, so basically, from what I read about it, was that the IFK was going to form this sort of inner circle thing and make all decisions about the like for the organization from within that circle. And either Nick DaCosta was chosen to be part of that and thought it was whack, or he wasn't chosen to be part of that group, that like inner circle, and found it, you know, unreasonable. Anyway, they decided to break away from the IFK in England. Um, and another sort of rift or offshoot is that Lechi Kurbanov is officially out of the IKO, although we may have talked about it on here, and I've certainly talked about it with Path. Privately, he's sort of been out of the loop in the IKO for a number of years, but hasn't sort of surfaced um, in any other organization until now. So he seems to be part of a new Russian Kyokushin organization called the Kyokushin Federation of Russia. So that was a breakaway organization from the IKO Russia by the branch chief of the Perm Dojo. So that's like Darman Sadvokasov's dojo. So Darman came in fourth in the world in 2015. So just some context there. And also Lecce did a seminar with Tario Shevli.
Your guess is as good as mine on that one.
So the 10th world tournament champion, uh, and who is, I think Tario and his branch chief are still connected with Shinkyokushin uh, after they left the IKO. So Lecce's all over the place and is in charge of karate at the Akamat Sports Center,
Mm.
Chechnya. Well, we won't get into the politics there, but it's named after uh, Akamat Kadyrov, who was the sort of rebel leader in the Chechen Civil War, the first Chechen Civil War, and ultimately ended up siding with Putin. That's all I'll say about it. His son is now like sort of the dictator of Chechnya, or president, however you want to look at it. Moving on, though. uh, you mentioned that there was someone left an organization that's sort of within the JFKO, right?
Yeah, all I would add to the Katarov thing, because I think we did talk about it on a previous show, that Lechi Kurbanov, we were pretty sure had been gone for a while. I know from people I do have some connections inside these organizations who tell me things anonymously. I'd heard that him accepting that sort of ridiculous fortress castle dojo from Katarov really did not sit well with people in the org who, I think it's pretty obvious IKO tends to really like being politically neutral and not talking about that stuff. If you follow any of their fighters' Instagram, it is tight-lipped on anything going around the world. They don't talk about it. I'm pretty sure they're encouraged not to, which I'm not necessarily against, actually, just leaving politics completely out of it. But so I
Except the Russian team, but it
right. Right. Some of that
Team
got
got
deleted though. Yeah.
yeah, team. Some of it anti-war stuff definitely got deleted, and
Hmm.
then a couple weeks later, couple guys on the team God Hand, which is in Katarinaburg, I think,
Hmm. That's right.
had like Team Putin shirts on, so quickly changed their stance.
Yeah,
But
some guys posted anti-war stuff, and then some, but they've all, I think, gotten the message from on high to shut the fuck up, basically.
yeah.
Um, so I think him accepting such an outwardly political gift really upset. I don't know that's why he left, but I know there were people in the organization who told me specifically that that did not sit well with certain people. But moving on to another sort of political thing, I got to be careful on how I approach this. If people are fans of a podcast about kickboxing that I have been a guest host on many times, I talked a lot about the Tabuchis. So there's Suzuka and Kanta Tabuchi, and they were both sort of upcoming guys from the Kensei Juku, a really small sort of offshoot karate org that would fight in JFKO, and they were basically like Ronin, like traveling, fighting in everybody's tournaments that would let them in. Um, yeah, I did have some conversations with one of them, so, but I'm pretty sure they wouldn't be happy if I said anything publicly. But I'll say what's been obvious. So I had a segment on podcasts about kickboxing where every time I would go on, I would have a Tabuchi update, and I would list all the times that they had fought since the last time we'd done a show. And we do show almost monthly, and it'd be like 10 fights. And so I was really worried and unhappy about what I was seeing. The Kensei Juku YouTube had posted a video of Suzuka training where she's getting dropped over and over again, and she's in tears crying, and the master is just yelling like, you're nothing, you're a loser, get up. um,
Thanks.
and they were fighting, like they were switching back and forth between not only like knockdown rules but glove rules and kickboxing rules, and they would do like 2 all Japans of some smaller orgs and then go and fight in Rise like the next day. And they would wear like gi pants always in the ring, and I seriously wonder if the real reason was to hide the welts still on the inside of their thighs.
Maybe. I mean, that's a good point, man. That sounds insane.
And I was really unhappy with what I was seeing. I'll leave it at that. And I reached out a couple times about it. I didn't like what I was seeing at all. I didn't like what I felt like was underlying this. And anyway, I can't say anything that was said to me or that I investigated and found out, but I'm just happy to report that both of them have quit Kensei Juku and have left the organization. I've seen Suzuka Tabuchi has been training with Omori, who is a Shin Kyokushin guy who's in Rise now. Also with Keisuke Monguchi, the guy who got kicked out for recording his own fights. So she seems to be still finding other karateka to train with. She only fought once in the last like month and a half, 2 months, and she won. So I'm happy to see that too, because they were racking up losses like crazy, both of them, from just, I think, fighting so much.
Are
I didn't
they fully switching to kickboxing now?
That I don't know. I haven't had a chance to speak with either of them uh, or reach out in DM or anything since this happened because I've been away. But I was just happy that Mike told me before I came on this show that they had announced publicly that they'd left. I had some idea that this was coming, but didn't know when it was going to be announced. Didn't want to break anybody's trust. I guess that's all I'll say about it. But I'm just really happy they're in a better situation because I was very concerned with what I was seeing.
That
Um,
yeah. And you
oh,
wonder, like, I mean, that's got to happen elsewhere too.
oh God, I'm sure it does.
Um, Especially, you know, those elite Kyokushin guys. I mean, they're not sort of switching back and forth between um, boxing and karate a lot of the time, but the coaching style of or the Japanese style of coaching, I'll say, is not the most supportive always. So you got to imagine that sort of abusive. I mean, you look at it in the news in Japan, like a lot of the judo coaches for elementary school and middle school are going to jail now for being abusive because kids are dying and they're not they're either getting dropped on the head 100 times or whatever, or they're dying of heat stroke. And so um, definitely I think there's potential to be abusive in that sort of environment, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to say something slightly controversial here, but I actually think it's less a problem of martial arts. I really do think that. I think it's honestly more of a Japanese society problem.
Oh, that's true.
Because
I
I
think.
bet you'd find this in their tennis teams even. Because unfortunately, there's this, you know, I don't know what you'd call it, the cone of silence bullshit, where they won't talk about it. They won't out people. They won't.
Yeah.
There's I've run up against this. I'm no journalist, right? I'm not a journalist, but when I hear really messed up things are going on, I do, even if I never talk about it on the show, I do follow up on it just to try to be a good person.
Mm.
And not this thing at all, but there was something else that came up where there was a really serious accusation floating around about somebody. And I dug in about as hard as humanly possible. I went Walter Cronkite on this bitch. And I reached out to everybody. I even traveled somewhere to talk to someone in person to see if I could sort of shame them into telling me something, someone who would obviously know. And
Yeah.
again, I was met with a wall of silence. Nobody would even admit they knew what I was talking about. Um,
Oh,
so I was never able to confirm anything about it, and I think that's awful because what this was about was like you really need to say it if this was happening because
yeah.
this person needs to get out. So I just assume innocent at this point because no
Yeah.
one's willing to say anything. But this is the problem, right? And here's something I want to say too: point fighters, right? Point fighters get a lot of shit from people for being, babies or whatever and not getting hit and stuff like that. I want to send a shout out to, Mike, who follows point stuff more than anybody, and
Mm.
to the people in that. They speak up, man. Junatsuki has outed like two trainers for their bullshit, and Ayumi Uekusa did a huge expose on one of her instructors
Wow.
who was hitting her and stuff. And you can just Google Ayumi Uekusa like instructor, and you'll find it. It even got translated to English. The point fighters don't put up with that shit, man. Like they
Yeah.
have no, you know, sworn to silence crap. They will out abusive dickheads, and I have to salute them for that because that's a level of bravery that for some reason we don't seem to have in knockdown, at least in Japan, and I hope that changes because I don't want to
Yeah.
see another Tabuchi situation again.
I hope so. I hope so too. But I wonder if that for Juna and Ayumi, like, is that because they were sort of sports women now? Because like sports karate was in the Olympics, and so they're sort of professional athletes now, where of knockdown, and you can argue Japanese style kickboxing still very like martial artsy that
Yeah, still
you
very
sort of
amateur. Yeah,
that like that not amateur, but I mean that like look at what we're taught in class. Os, right?
right.
Os
For
is
everything.
the answer
Got
for
shot in the
everything.
face. Us. Yeah, I'm
That
good.
is to and it's like oshi shinobu to persevere through hardship, right? So that's the first thing we learn on day one of starting karate, right? Is that it's gonna hurt, it's gonna suck, get over it, right? So which can work in most cases, right, you learn how to deal with pain, you learn how to deal with adversity in and out of the dojo, right? But that can also be an excuse to abuse people in a certain way and just be like, suck it up, it's part of training, right? So, it's interesting to hear you say like that, you know, two of the most famous female karateka like have spoken up, but again, they don't come from that sort of hard male um, dominated sort of mentality of just persevering through hardship, right? I mean, they're definitely traditional karateka, but it's just a different mindset.
I think that's probably a big part of it. It's well said. Um,
Right? And then I guess we'll move on to our last point, unless you have other things to talk about. Um, was the KWU camp in Bulgaria? So the Kyokushin World Union
mm,
um,
I missed
hosted.
this, so I'll let you go with that.
Okay, um, the Kyokushin World Union, which is sort of the parent organization that Kyokushin Khan and other sort of smaller independent Kyokushin organizations fight under. It's sort of like the European or non-Japanese version of the JFKO. Um, they they're a Kyokushin organization, but they also put on K1 style kickboxing events under the name Senshi. So have they hosted a camp a couple weeks ago in Bulgaria, and they invited Peter Arts, Ernesto Hust, Semi Schilt, Sam Greco, and Nick Pettis. So all legendary golden era K1 fighters. And Nick Pettis and Sam Greco come from Kyokushin, and Semi Schilt has he's an Ashihara guy, or Ashihara by way of the Netherlands. Um, and Peter Arts and Ernesto Hust are like the best Dutch style kickboxers. Um, but yeah, so they were the guests of honor for that camp. So they had a karate side, a Kyokushin side, which Nick, Sam, and Semi um, worked on. They ran seminars and stuff like that, and they had a kickboxing side in which Nick Pettis, which all of them worked on and held seminars as well to help the Senshi guys. Um, but Nick Pettis, he's said it on social media a bunch of times, but he hasn't taught martial arts or has been involved in anything martial arts in over 10 years because he sort of retired from K1, had two hip replacements, and then sort of got involved with CrossFit, in which he's like the CrossFit ambassador for Japan now, and also runs a very successful CrossFit gym in Nishi Azabu, I think, which is one of the most wealthiest neighborhoods in Tokyo. So although he says he's been sort of keeping in the loop with things, he hasn't been directly involved in martial arts in over 10 years. But he was invited over to the tournament for probably a lot of money. I'm not going to get into that, um, uh, but he gave a lecture about sort of the mental side of fighting and for karate as well, um, which he was sort of that was part of the deal of him coming, is that he could give this lecture to the fighters. He released or the KWU released an interview with Nick a couple days ago, which is really interesting. I definitely invite all of you to go check that out. It's on YouTube somewhere, where Nick sort of talks about what he was gonna talk about in the lecture about making sure to have a backup plan in life, and also just if you're going to commit yourself to be a professional fighter, what that entails. Are you willing to get up at 5 in the morning every day, go for a run, go do weight training, go do karate or kickboxing training for however many hours a day for months on end, years on years. Um, you know, and if you are, then you are a rare individual, and that you definitely have a path to succeed in the sport. But if you're not, then here are a couple other things to think about along your way. So I just thought that was interesting to have all those guys in one place. I'm sure it was sort of very productive, and I'm kind of jealous that Bulgaria or all those European guys got to experience that. Also, something to note was that Damyanov was there at the camp as well. So he is the 11th world champion for the IKO. He won in 2015, and then shortly thereafter left and joined the KWU organization in Bulgaria. There's rumors about where their funding comes from, and why he left, and stuff like that. But we don't have to get into that. But yeah, so that's all I want to talk about that camp. So yeah, Path, do you have anything else?
Oh yeah. I didn't see any of this stuff. I missed the camp or like the uploads and stuff like that. But you did tell me about it before we came on. Um, one thing I would say is yeah, like to get all those guys in there, like again, we don't know anything, so there's no reason to speculate too hard. All we're gonna say is Kyokushin World Union just seems to have an endless supply of money. They're not selling pay-per-views like crazy to their Senshi shows or anything. They just seem to be able to afford every legend on earth and pay these fighters a lot. I'm not sure how. That's all we can say about it. And then one small correction. I think Nick keeps saying this, uh, that he hasn't taught in 10 years and stuff like that, but it's not entirely true. Like he's been teaching Sina Karimian, the K1 champion.
Yeah.
He was doing it in secret for quite a while before Cena fought KG in their rematch at K Festa, and I'm pretty sure he was helping Leona prepare for Takaru, and that they were training at the CrossFit box, sort of in secret. And I know for sure at least Cena was. But yeah, it's
So
true that Leona and Kona were his last two students before he shut down the Spirit Gym and sort of left that life. But he is still training Cena, so I don't know why he keeps saying that he hasn't trained anybody in 10 years. But
so he does have another guy that works at the CrossFit gym with him.
mm-hmm.
This guy Etienne Dore. I'm probably butchering his name, but he's a French Canadian guy. Um,
You.
uh, whatever. Uh, but he's from Shihan Gibert's dojo, but he's been living in Japan for like over 20 years or so. I think he has been sort of the catalyst of getting Nick back into the martial arts scene. He's sponsoring Nick to teach us a seminar in Montreal sometime in August. So it's interesting to see influence he may be on Nick getting back into the fight world.
Man, are you serious? I love Nicholas Pettis. Like, talk to him a lot and stuff. That sucks. He's gonna go to Montreal. Finally, he's teaching again. He's gonna do a seminar in Canada, and he's gonna do it when I'm out of the country. For fuck me, that would be my luck. That's interesting to
Yeah,
hear.
but it is for Shihan Gibert, so
Makes sense. Just
yeah,
sucks that I could have gone to
yeah,
that in other circumstances.
yeah.
Fuck me.
Who decided to travel the world?
Yeah, what kind of an asshole decides to travel the world right now? What
Yeah.
a douchebag that guy is. Yeah. Okay, so we're almost done. There's a few more things to touch on. I don't think you follow FICA at all, so maybe I'll just talk about it briefly.
And no, I don't follow them, but um, Fukichi just Fukichi just did a YouTube video the Seito Kaikan Umbu, their FICA rules.
Yes, with Ren Ito, who I was going to talk about. Yeah, Yuto Fukuchi, who's the Byakuren Kaiken's best fighter, 8 million time champion of everything. He's fought in every org. He's one of the best middleweights of all time, in my opinion. Not quite up to Zenjiro Mori's standing yet, but maybe in the future. We'll talk about him and the greatest middleweights of all time. He went, and so the FICA rules, this is my understanding, is that, so we all know Ishii went to prison, and K1 got, give me a second here, Chris. I'm going somewhere with this. So Ishii went to prison and lost K1 because of, I think it was back taxes or something that he hadn't paid. So he lost K1 and he sort of lost Seito Kaiken for a while. When he came back and retook the position as top of Seito Kaiken, I know Shinsei Kai split off. I don't think they were happy about that. But he sort of took it over and he's rebranded it away from. Ishii's kind of been a revolutionary. He's experimented with a lot of different rules for Seito Kaiken, but the new one that they're adopting is it's point full contact. So you can sweep, I think you can land one punch on the ground and you can hit as hard as you want. You can throw leg kicks, and leg kicks don't count as a point. They don't stop. You can just smash the legs and keep going. But it's point full contact. Very interesting rule set, very different. They did one last year. It was pretty good. Shota Yamaguchi was there. Shota Yamaguchi is one of the top Japanese heavyweights. He's from Byakuren Kaiken. He actually has recently left to go do kickboxing, and he's 2-0 and has already won a title in kickboxing after like 3 months training for it. And so I don't think he's going to be there because I think he is totally into kickboxing now, at least from his Twitter feed. So that would lead me to think that Ren Ito, who Yuto Fukuchi was training with in that video, is a shoe-in for FICA. He did really well last year. He basically didn't fight point fighting, which was interesting. While everyone else was bouncing in and out and trying to tag him in the stomach and bounce out and Zanshin, he was just walking them down, like kneeing them in the face and just knocking them flat out. So he sort of found a way around the rules there. I think Ren Ito is the best Sato heavyweight right now, and I expect him to do well. I think it's August 26th is the tournament, and it will very likely be streamed for free on YouTube again. So if anybody wants to watch it live, I would just look out for a link on that day or ask around for a link. I'm sure it won't be hard to find, and you can always find it on our Twitter if you can't find it anywhere else. That's all I really have to say about FICA.
So I was gonna let you finish, but I just want to say that the FICA rules are whack. Yeah, I hate it so much.
Fair enough.
It's interesting their take on sort of full contact point fighting. I think it's how point fighting should be, but man, it is, at least in my eyes, unwatchable. I don't know.
No, you're not
Just
alone on
because
that.
just to go from Seito Kaikan, like the competitor to Kokushin, right? In the 80s and in the 90s at least. And to go that way, which although the IKO has semi-contact sort of division and tournament now, but sort of abandoned that after the Olympics. But like, man, I hate it. I absolutely hate it. I don't know. I I'm definitely not going to watch that tournament, but have fun, everyone.
No, fair enough. I mean, one of the 4 contributors to the channel and to the Twitter and to the show is Aaron, who's been doing a shit ton of the Twitter stuff while I've been gone. Very grateful to him. He's actually my roommate in real life. Unfortunately, he's very annoying. Thank God I haven't had to deal with him lately. He is Mr. Seito Kaiken. So we've got Chris, who's Mr. Kyokushin Kaiken. We've got me, who's a curmudgeon who hates everybody. You got Mike, who's our point contact guy, and then you've got Aaron, who's Mr. Seito Kaiken, and he fucking hates it because he grew up in the Masaki Satake and the Hug
Hmm.
era of watching the World Cups before it morphed into K1. He does not like that they've gone point contact. Like whoever is the Seito Kaikan champion, he will just say they're the greatest knockdown fighter of all time, even if there's like that's ridiculous, just to annoy me. But even he won't say Ren Ito is the top fighter. He'll just say it's still Sam Greco in retirement, just to annoy me. Um, so yeah, he's not happy about it either, and he's from the
Yeah.
organization. So
Yeah. Did he? So did he live in Japan at all? Did he friend?
no, we had a Sato school in Toronto for a long
Oh,
time.
really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
Yep.
Um, well, I would argue that Mr. Sato Kaikon is actually Shingo Koyasu, who's now
Mm, right.
uh, a top guy in Shinsekai, but that was his nickname. So, friend has to go fight him.
Yeah. I think Aaron should fight him, honestly.
uh, um,
He's maintaining the switchboard. He's freaking out right now. No, I'm just kidding. Um, so that's basically all I have to say about FICA. And then the last major tournament is the Shin Kyokushin World Weight, which is somehow going ahead in September. I've looked over it. I think the only ones, like we'll probably do another show closer to it,
mhm,
so we won't get too far into it now. I just want to talk about heavyweight. So we've talked about before on the show how they sort of seed tournaments the way they want them to fold out, right? By giving their best fighters number 1 and number 128, or put them on exact opposite bracket sides. So they've
yes.
done that again. They have Kembu Iriki at the absolute tail end, and they have Gazauskas as on the other side.
Are all these people going to be able to enter Japan? I
That
don't think so.
that is what I don't understand. I think I'll have to ask Mike. Mike briefed me about it before I came on.
Mm,
I think what he said is it's actually not going to be in Japan. That's going to be in Europe.
that's
Um,
good. Okay.
but I'd have to check that. Don't nobody quote me on that. Mike's been keeping up with that for me. Again, shout out to Mike Karate Nation, who's been helping a lot with the channel and with Twitter.
Shout out, Mike.
Yeah, exactly. The four of us make a dream team of idiots, so it's beautiful stuff.
I don't know any of these people, by the
Yeah,
way.
you've never
So,
met me either, so
I never met you either. But yeah. Hopefully, one day we'll all meet up.
yeah, we can do that. We can maybe next year. Aaron, I can get to go to New York. That's easy. So Mike lives in Boston, so I don't know what his situation is,
Coast
but
guy. Yeah.
we can at least the three of us can do like a IRL show or something.
Yeah.
Um,
When you're done traveling the
yeah,
world.
traveling. Yeah. Anyway, so do you have any thoughts on the state of Shin Kyokushin's heavyweight division, or who you think would win that tournament?
Um, it's the same with IKO, right? It's going to be the same guys, unfortunately. So I would argue for the Lithuanian guy. I don't remember his. It's like
Event,
Kazakskis or something.
yeah, Evantis Gazauskas,
Um, just because he's like
fucking monster.
6'7" or whatever, and fights. Um, you know, he fights non-Japanese people a lot, right? So he's used to that sort of world class competition. I mean, although Shin-Kyokushin can be much more worldly, let's say, compared to IKO, but Kembu Iriki has only fought Japanese people for the last 2-3 years because of COVID, right? So I think there could just be an experience advantage with the Lithuanian guy. Um, but although he is he a good age now, Kazalskis?
Yeah, he's still young. Yeah,
Is he? Oh, okay.
yeah, he's not an
He's
old
just
guy.
been around for a while. Um,
I think
okay.
he's still in his 20s. Same as Kembu Iriki. That's the weird thing.
Yeah.
So they
Yeah.
start so young that you think they're old, but like Kembu Iriki's only like 25 or something, but he's been around
Really?
forever. Yeah, I know
My God.
we've had this conversation before where you were like, this guy's like 57. I'm like, nah, dude, he's 23. And you're like, what the fuck? I think that was Yuki Yoza. You thought he was like 35, and I was like, no, dude, he's
I, is,
23.
he's definitely older. Yo, I don't know, whatever. But yeah, I would say uh, Lithuania over Japan this time around on the world stage.
Okay, I think after I would have said different until I saw Yuta Goto wreck Iriki and then sort of get saved by the judges. But I have to agree. Gazalska's sort of exploded onto the scene for me, winning the two European Open weights back to back. He's just a monster, man. Like, and he's technical too. Like, he just slams into you. And something I've noticed is he must have, in my opinion, the best knuckle conditioning of anybody in the sport. Most people, when you see them throw their punches, it's very like sting. Like they bring it back real quick because you don't want to twist your. There's no wraps or anything, right? The way like this is
Yeah,
something that people who come from other sports just don't understand. They can't say enough. The way you punch in boxing and kickboxing is wrong. I'm sorry.
yeah.
Like people get really mad about this, but it's true. If
I
you
mean, they
didn't
break
have
their hands
wraps,
all the time, right?
exactly. If you fight without wraps and without gloves, you would just break your hand every time. Like I'm sorry. There's a way to punch barehanded that they just don't train very well. And that's why punches look pretty different in Kyokushin because you've got to fight 7 or 8 times and not break your wrist. So they tend to punch and pull back really hard. Gazalska's punches like a friggin' kickboxer in Kyokushin. Like he throws his entire body into it, and even like once he makes contact, he keeps pushing, which is like
Mm,
a great way to twist your wrist out.
yeah,
But he does it. He'll go 2 minutes just throwing everything into every punch as if it's wrapped in a glove and just massacre people. And he never hurts himself. It's incredible. He must have the best knuckle conditioning ever.
must be the Makiwara king of
Right?
Lithuania.
It's nuts, man. Like he's scary. Like I remember watching him against Salahat Hasanov, who I am really high on Hasanov, the king of the Caucasus, right? Like he's a great
Mm,
fighter, movement fighter, and Evantis just went right through him. Um,
yeah,
it's hard to imagine anybody stopping him, but I think if Yuta Goto is in that tournament, he's got a better chance of Iriki than at you know
yeah.
making it to the finals against him. Um, I'm trying to think if there's anything else we should cover. I guess one thing I want to lament really quick is when we
Mm,
look at the landscape of knockdown karate, you've got like 4 or 5 really great fighters in each organization. It's just so sad that we can never get like a true world tournament because I actually think part of the reason knockdown, first of all, trying to follow the organizations is difficult for us. So how somebody who's not in the know would do it is impossible. But if you had a tournament, you could get these organizations to work together, and you had Shimamoto, Mikio Ueda, Ivantis Gazalskas, Eremenko, Igor Zagainov, Kembu Iriki. You had Callum Black from Shinseikai. If you could get all the best guys across knockdown into one tournament, not only do I think that would be like one of the highest level fighting events ever in history,
mm.
I think you would actually get like casual people to watch. Like I think having 18,000 organizations and 26,000 champions that never fight each other is, I don't know, it's just so sad. Like I can't even imagine how awesome Gazalskas versus Eremenko could be, or Mikio Ueda versus Yuji Shimamoto. It's
That
just
would be
sad
great.
that this is
Yeah,
where we are. Like
yeah. I mean, the people have been saying that
forever.
30 years now, right? Or even before that, with Seido Kaikon and Kyokushin, or with Budo and Kyokushin, or it's just, and even after Soul Side's death, right? Everyone broke away, so
Mm,
it's just you know, just something that's in within our little world, right? That um, a perfect world, we would all be together, right? But um, but yeah, I agree with you that it's pretty sad that people just can't together or whatever. But yeah, I agree that that would be so sick. I don't know if you would get casual viewers though. Um, Although you could make an argument that you could do like UFC style, like casual viewing, like pay per view or something. But I don't know if that will ever happen again. Like the casual viewing of, or like the casual like jock finding MMA or anything like it again. I think that was sort of like a very special time in history in the early 2000s and the late 90s about the UFC. But yeah, one can only dream that you could get casual viewers of Kyokushin, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good point. It was a place in time, just like K1 in the 90s, making kickboxing really popular. It was a place in time which K1 Japan has never been able to recapture. Um, but I would just say, like, I'm basing it on something, not nothing, because when I look at the seventh world tournament, which was, it was after Sosai's death, and it was a bit split, but we had, it may have been split, but I would still say like 80% were still in the IKO, or something like that. You had international talent from the Russians. You had Francisco Fiuho and Globe Feitosa. You had the Japanese heroes like Hajime Kazumi. You had Gary O'Neill, right? You had Nicholas Pettis. You had sort of a very international level talent from across the world, and that did get casual viewers. Like I meet people all the time who don't do Kyokushin, don't know much about it, but they damn well have seen the seventh world tournament. They know who Francisco Filo is. They know who Gary
I mean, the
O'Neill
fifth,
is.
right?
Seventh.
Seventh is 2000. Oh
Sorry,
no, yes.
sorry, buddy, you're way off on that one. Seventh is the one that Francisco Filo won.
Also 99. Oh, I don't
Seventh
know what
is
year.
99. Yeah, seventh is 99.
Okay, yeah,
You had Alexander Pichnikov from Russia. You had like a truly international level
yeah.
of talent. And like I feel like I meet people all the time who are into combat sports. They don't give a shit about karate, but they know about that one. They've seen Fiuho versus Kazumi. They've seen Globe Feitosa in that
That's so
tournament.
wild. I've never met a person that knows anything about Kyokushin
Really,
ever.
eh? Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's
But
so crazy.
well, even just like look up seventh world tournament highlights on YouTube. They're all in like millions of views.
Yeah,
Um, and Francisco Filo highlights from that era. They're like it was huge. Um,
me and my
but since
mom
then,
actually watched the Brazilian documentary about that followed Filio up
oh
until
yes, with
the
Izobe
tournament.
Sensei. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We I was home on Saturday and like have like a smart TV, so I just turned on YouTube and turned that on, and my mom watched it with me, so it was kind of cool.
Yeah, that was a really special time in history that I don't know we'll
Yeah.
ever capture that again. So before we go to end off, because I've been a little bit negative on the show, I did celebrate the All Japan weight. It was really good. Let's end on a high note and just talk about across the organizations right now. Like, let's say this hypothetical tournament did happen. Who do you think right now is legitimately the number one guy in Knockdown? Like, where do you see the standings right now?
Right now, overall, I don't. I would still argue Zagainov, man. He's my go-to guy right now.
Okay, fair enough. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't think that's a bad pick. Like, I don't. I think
yeah,
it's hard to argue that he's not at least in the top three.
yeah.
Um,
Just because skill-wise and knockout. I mean, he's proven he has knockout power against Kamada, against other guys within Russia as well. He's knocking people out left and right. But I also think there's marketing potential with him, right? He could become the next world champion. He could fight a 100-man kumite. You know, I there's growth with him. I think more than just technical skill.
no, I think you're totally right, man, and that's the it factor I'm talking about that I look for. When I was talking earlier about Kaito Nishimura and saying he doesn't have that it factor that I saw from Takahashi and Shohei Kamada. That's what I'm talking about. And you're right, Igor
Mm.
Zagainov has it. He finishes people. He's exciting. He can fight anywhere in the world and do well. He can adapt his style. He can sweep you or he can kick you in the face and knock you out immediately. And yeah, I could see him becoming, and he's young, right? He's got time. He's only like
Yeah, he's
23, 24.
23. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's a decent pick. Um, I
Do you have?
it's hard because we haven't seen Aramenko in a while, but he already beat Zagainov twice, um, both in the World Tournament and then in a Russian tournament.
Mhm.
He still seems to just be. We talk about this a lot where guys in Kyokushin will start off really young, like 16, like 15, 16, and sort of like Mikio Ueda did and come up. And it's weird that in most sports you win the world title when you're in your
Mhm.
prime and then you slowly decline and maybe you defend it a
Yeah.
couple times and you lose it. That is not typically how it goes in Kyokushin.
You get
Kyokushin,
that branch chief deal right away, and you retire and disappear.
yeah, that's a lot of it. But when they win the world tournament, like you look at Zaharia Damyanov, like he was almost 30, I think. Like it's usually the tail end of their prime. Like they get in their prime and then it's like the last achievement is winning the world tournament right before they retire. And I feel like Aramenko is right there. He's like 30, 31. He's been around for a long time. He's now finally at the top. I think it's his time. I think he'll win the next world tournament
I don't
and then
think he.
retire.
Oh, I don't think he's gonna do it next year. I'd
Who do
say
you think
he's
will beat
done.
him?
I don't think he would fight next year.
You think he's going to retire?
Yeah, I think he's pretty settled with his dojo. I think, and he had
Aramenko
like
and
a
Dojo? Yeah.
yeah. I mean, he had like a horrific arm injury or whatever. I don't even know what happened, but it didn't look good. So and I don't think he doesn't seem to be training all that hard. They had like the Russian summer camp a couple weeks ago or last week. He was there, but like he doesn't. I think he's just like there to hang. I but I don't know. I don't see him in the next tournament, next world tournament.
I guess we'll have to wait and see on that one. I think the last one he did was 2020 in Russia. I think he did
Yeah,
against, and then he beat Zagainov in the final. So I mean, we'll see. Like COVID and the war in
yeah.
Ukraine has probably played a large role in his inactivity. So we'll see if he comes back. I would have him winning if he does. If not him, then I actually that's a tough one. If it's not him, maybe
Would it be? Yeah.
Gazauskas. I think I can't.
Oh,
Maybe
for
he's
the fake like dream tournament they have.
exactly. Um, I think he has a good argument to be number one, but I want to see how he does in September 1st. I want to see how he
Yeah.
does against Japan's best, as he's only been fighting in Europe. But yeah, it'd be like Aramenko, Zagainov, Ivantas, um, maybe Navarro can still be in that conversation.
Being
But
that he
it's
just won
interesting,
the European Championship at 46.
just ridiculous. I'm just turning 30 and I'm already done, so I don't know how the hell he's still doing it. But I actually would just say overall, I think the knockdown space is pretty healthy, despite like Russia being cut off from the world right now. I think we had a really good era with the four aces of the All Japan and Aramenko and Navarro, and we sort of left that and had a weird space in between the last World
Mm.
Tournament and now. But I think we're coming out of it now with Gazauskas, Igor Zagainov really showing up. I think we're in a good spot
Yeah.
globally for talent. I would just like to see these orgs fight each other a bit more so we could
Yeah.
get a pecking order. It's really hard to determine a pecking order when they never fight.
Yeah.
But I think that's all for us. And thank you guys very much for listening. I'm still away, so thank you for Aaron and Mike, and of course Chris for holding down the fort while I'm gone. And hopefully we'll try to get another show before the World Weight Tournament in September.
Yeah. So I might try to do something on Zoom. some of my. I didn't ask anyone yet, so this is just an idea, but I might try to get perspective from person that fought in the world tournament and is now a coach or has coached the world tournament team versus someone who recently fought in the last world tournament. But I didn't ask anyone yet, and I'm still figuring that out. How like the logistics of that, but it will be if it works out, it will be on this channel as well, and Path is going to I'll talk it over with Path as well when that happens.
Yeah, I think it's great. Like I know people have really been enjoying the shorts that have gone up on the channel. That's all Mike from Karate Nation who's been doing that. I'm really happy to have this channel be a collaboration channel these days and get different perspectives and stuff. So I'm really grateful to everybody who's come on with me. And thank you everyone for listening.